This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. Oh, you can't hear me yet?
I'll do it with you.
I can
Ready?
do a round.
This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. I don't know how many times you do it.
Good to see. Hey, by the way, I'm recording the session. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And then I'll just send it to you after, and you can use it for whatever.
Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So what's been good and positive with you in life in general since we chatted last?
Yeah, lots of things moving, lots of growth. I'm always learning, which is really interesting. I feel like, trying to build an organization, you're kind of learning in ways that aren't necessarily passionate for you. You're just kind of learning in ways in which you're problem solving. And I find that's, you grow a lot, but ultimately it's, I really enjoyed learning about muscle testing a lot more than I learned about, not cash flows. I understood cash flows, but you know what I'm saying? There's numbers and stuff that I don't necessarily love as much as mental toughness, but
you can't anticipate the curriculum day to day in business development.
Nope.
So I can definitely appreciate the journey you're on because I've been there and I'm still there.
Yeah. Super cool.
And it's like there's new devils at new levels. So it's like every level you get to, it's like different stuff comes out of nowhere like crazy, right?
Yeah. I've been unpacking a lot of Joe Dispenza's work lately and trying to understand, holding emotions in your body and your emotions being highly repetitive and habitual, and trying to release and get rid of the negative emotions that are taking me over consistently. So trying to observe and be highly aware of that, which I was before, probably around the time of our last call, and me being half confused as to how we can suggest that those habits aren't serving, because I think we were unpacking happiness at the time, which was really interesting.
So.
And for me, it was like, I would love to get rid of the side of my personality that becomes hypercritical and anxious and frustrated and, always tasking and super scattered. Like, I would love to be able to just like release that. And then, I always thought it as a circle, but from the frame of Joe Dispenza, it's like you can, I'm studying manifestation right now, so it's really interesting. But trying to create a different level of yourself that doesn't really go there anymore, or doesn't really have that space for that anxiety or frustration. So it's interesting, but I'm definitely not doing it perfectly just yet. So it's definitely a growth course.
You can get clarity on it. It comes down to values, actually. If you can lift the veil on your values, you will find the answers to all of that.
Interesting. I'll lift the veil on your values. That's a piece. I think first off, Fox, thank you so much for meeting with me, man. I was honestly maybe about 10 beers deep when I had a moment with a friend who'd lost his sister, and she was 30. And we were having this super in-depth, as you do when you're 10 beers deep, right? But we were having this super deep conversation, and I hadn't seen him since I was 25, and I was telling him, how much he meant to me in my childhood and how I could always find safety and closure by spending time with him. Long story. Obviously, I'd have to unpack my whole childhood for you, but it was emotional. We were really connected. And then I was like, who understands death real well? Fox. And it was one of those things where I shot you a line in a vote of confidence, and for you to meet with me this quickly, I'm just very grateful, man. So thank you for your time.
You were the third person that week that reached out to me about that topic.
Interesting.
Prior to that, nobody in the past year and a half.
Whoa.
It was like all in this. So I was like, I've got some sort of calling to share some of the teachings I've made in this area now.
Yeah.
Right? So
super
it
cool.
was and I told my wife, I said I had 3 people this week reach out to me specifically for fear of death. Specifically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I respect the journey you're on, and I totally honor it, and the different phases you're at and everything else. And the one thing I'll tell you is that I will support you for the rest of your life, no matter what. And that is like, you can be like, I think Brendan Fox is a piece of crap, blah, 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 say mean things and everything else. And I would be like, you know what? I am never going to actually give up on you. And I will still continue to support you, and I'll forgive all that crap, because I know you're better than that, and I know what you're actually capable of deep down, even if you don't know it. So
Thank you.
I promise you that for the rest of your life.
It's a wonderful promise.
And when I gain wisdom, I do it as an act of love and caring for everyone else, because I use it to pass it on. So I become wisdom obsessed, because that's the way I share with people in my lifetime, right? So
right.
so it's kind of like I'm happy to just share everything I can whenever I can and have these conversations. So um, in regards to fear of death, this is a really awesome fear to have,
Interesting.
because it underneath it exposes some ingredients that are really essential to get at some root causes. I want you to think of it like a master recipe that you would make out of a cookbook. We
Okay.
want to understand the ingredients you used to chef this thing up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you may not be aware of all of them, so if you're not, I might have to prompt you by sharing some possible ones. But at the outset, what are the ingredients behind this fear of death? It might be beliefs or concerns, or what is it really?
Yeah. So, I wrote down a couple different notes here, and hopefully, I can be as vulnerable as possible and unpack all of these memories and these things that
Yeah, of
I've
course,
written
man.
here. So, if I could just take the stage for 2 or 3 minutes, explain them all, give you my whole perspective on what I think it
Love
is.
it.
Not, that you wouldn't, just to be candid.
Love it.
And
Love it.
I can fully articulate what I think my perspective on it is currently. And it's definitely evolved, but it was really, really traumatic as a kid. I remember, and apparently, in psychological study, we only remember the things that are most emotional to us as a kid. And I remember being in tears running up to my mom when I was like 3, 7, really young. And just being in tears about, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And she's like, oh dear, like you're not going to die, right? You're just so young. And that's all I could really remember. So that was my first real experience with death. Now, I don't know if it was surrounding the passing of my grandfather or whatever that meant, but he was one of the first closest people to go. So I remember a couple years back, I had this, new visitation with the thought of death at a deep level. So I was reading one of Dean Graziosi's book, and he's just an online marketer who's doing quite well and studying a lot of different people. And he said one of the exercises to figure out true motivations are to go 7 levels deep. So ask why 3 times, ask why 5 times. He says to go 7 times. And I remember unpacking it in the car with one of my ex-girlfriends, and I was in tears by 7 because it was like death. Why are you really doing that? Like, because I'm terrified of death. And I remember I was in tears again about it, and that was my second kind of introduction, to it. Now, when people pass now, I don't get super reserved. Like, I try to be strong at funerals, but when I want to cry, I cry, type thing. And I think that's, being okay in that environment. But there was a couple things that have happened in the past maybe 2 years that have been really interesting. And I lived with a pastor for a year after me and my ex split up, which was probably about a year and a half ago. I ended up living up with one of my former colleagues. They took me in, and they were lovely. Like, if you were to witness unconditional love and the capacity to give to others and recover from that, because it can take, it can drain you, and then you have to recuperate and continue to love unconditionally. Like, that was a beautiful experience for me. And it's said that Christians have a remarkable understanding of death, or at least try to unpack what that is and have some sort of explanation of what that means. So for me, I've never been, let's say, dismissive, and I don't really reject the idea of a supreme being, higher power, God, Jesus, like all of these, lords or things that have spiritually come to us in our life. I just like to ask questions, and I think,
As you should.
yeah, and I'm sure you can probably have seen that in my nature in our relationship. I'm always kind of dissecting and picking things apart. So from a spiritual aspect, I'm like, well, you can't say faith is fact. You can say faith is faith, and you can have a deep connection with your faith, but to say it's fact is a very different conversation. For me, it's hard to, substantiate, and we can go into the exercise therapy world of saying truth through experience and all of these different things. And I can have experienced something deeply emotional, but to correlate immediately and to say it must be God is like, well, that's a faith, not a fact.
I don't
right?
believe in
So
that, by the way. I'm not a fan of that. How people will just say they intellectually come up with evidence.
right, confirmation bias, like something great
Yeah,
happens in
yeah.
your
I'm not
life
a
and all
fan
of
of
a
that.
sudden, yeah, it's, for me, it's, I'm dating a Christian. She's a lovely girl, but I won't budge on that stance, and I'll support, her, her belief in her faith and all of those different things, and respect her in many ways. And we don't have to get too intense about it. When we do, we back off and just love each other and all those great things.
Good.
The takeaway more or less is like, everyone's entitled to their belief. It's hard for me to believe your belief unless you can give me something, a deeper meaning and resonance as to why it is a belief, right? And anyways, I'm probably running off the handle. I studied a lot of NLP stuff this year, so like my brain is like
No,
super
no, no, no.
involved in.
That's good. I just earmarked a conversation we can have about
Mm,
that will
okay,
kind of
yeah, yeah,
guide you to the answers you're looking for and the
interesting.
process you're looking for. Because
Mm,
I'm actually of your mindset on that one.
yeah,
That I
sure,
actually
and
do not think it's actually satisfactory to blindly believe. I don't think that's satisfactory, and I don't think it's authentic.
fair.
And there's always an undercurrent of doubt,
Mhm.
and you shouldn't do that with anything, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
and regardless of the intent behind it. So I'm actually we can have a conversation about that, because I'll speak in a way you'll appreciate, because I have the same philosophy and value you do on that completely.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, I'd love to. And I'll give the last couple pieces, and then you can go off in any direction that you think really speaks to where I'm at, because I'd love to pull it in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my thought process with living with a pastor, great connection. Everyone, you have this great afterlife. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, sure. So then we had, and this is chronologically, of course, we had a conversation where you asked if I was anxious, and I said yes. And you said, well, it's because of your lack of understanding in a creator. Maybe I'm paraphrasing and not picking perfect words here. So you can unpack that a second as well.
Yep.
But I was like, okay, root of anxiety is not having faith in the creator or supreme something, or, something larger than us. And, I can resonate with that. And
I
it
call
started.
it spiritual doubt. Spiritual doubt's a better term. It just encompasses all of that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I'll take that, and say spiritual doubt. And then,
And it's not a bad thing. It's I think it's a good thing, because it's honest. I
yeah,
think a lot of people aren't honest about their beliefs. They don't believe what they profess and live out there.
almost like they're just admitting
I
outwardly
think
something that
I
they
think
think
some of the most
fits.
spiritual people are atheists, because they've actually given it thought and consideration.
I can't go down that route. I've got a couple experiences of some really highly correlated faith based people, and they don't go far with those things. I like that suggestion. So two final things. In February, man, like it felt like in the first week, 15 people died. Right? Like people in my world that I knew, friends, fathers of friends who I've known forever, who are totally healthy, heart attack on the toilet, best friend's sister I've known since I was 3, a day before me, born a day before me. That's the one we were 10 beers deep, and I rarely drink, so I paid for that day. But, it was a great day to celebrate with them, Sam's life. But there was so many instances of like so much chaos and so much pain and struggle going on, and I really mourned the first one. And then the next 12 that happened, I was like, I don't have the time to grieve all of this pain. I have to stay operational for my own emotional and mental health. And I'm working on trying not to identify with my productivity. That's a beast in and of itself. um, but and then more recently, I had this conversation, and this is the final kind of unpacking of my death experience that I can remember. Um, I was talking to one of my business partners who was diagnosed. You know her, actually, Jessica. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So 6 months after she had a vertigo experience. So I haven't been able to talk to her for, I don't know, 3.5, 4 weeks, and then COVID and all these other things. So I went to visit her, and her partner is huge on Alan Watts and huge on Eckhart Tolle and huge on like really foundational understandings for me when I was initially trying to study what, I don't know, anything that resonated in depth. And we had this really incredible thought, and he was giving me some details about my ego that I thought I'd unpacked that I hadn't, and I was like mind blown. But we got to the death thing again, and then he had shown me this video. At least they sent it to me, and I hadn't watched it with them, but I came home, and it was a doctor who'd been in the ER or brings people back to life, and apparently it's only 6%. Like we see on TV shows that they bring back people all the time. It's only about 6% in real life where doctors actually have the capacity to resuscitate people. And he said in one night he had 3 people in a row, and they all had a very similar experience. So when they first came back, all 3 of them said, "Why did you bring me back?" as the first sentence, right? And then when they described it, they had some sentence in there that I can't, paraphrasing, but it was like complete acceptance, let's say. And they spoke of whiteness and complete acceptance. And I don't know what that means, right? So if you are clinically dead and then brought back to life, is there some sort of transitionary period? For me, I've studied a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh, and spent a lot of time in the logic of emptiness, and the details of everything is, and that makes a lot of sense. And then, nothing is anything. If you have presence, you're just, there's so many ways to unpack this. So that's me in a nutshell on the fear of death and my relationship with it. And I'm still afraid of it. But I think it does fall in line with something you said where, spiritual doubt or misunderstanding something spiritually. So that's where I'm at.
Doubt. Yeah, spiritual doubt. Simple. So I'm just going to relay back to you what I'm hearing basically is
sure.
You've identified like two of the ingredients I'm very clear on, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is lack of trust in a creator, right?
Okay. Yep.
For very good reasons, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wouldn't want you to build that trust on testimony of other people.
Right.
I think it has to be a personal knowing for you, or it's not very worthy. Okay. That's my belief. And that's what I would encourage you and only advise you to do. Okay. Mm-hmm. I know that's an uncommon approach. I know most people you talk to are going to be like, you need to do this, you need to give yourself to this or that. And that's not the way I believe. And if we do a deep dive on it, you'll see that there's a lot of shortcomings to that approach. Mm-hmm. Now, spiritual doubt could be the belief that the afterlife is like nothingness or it's pain and consequence, but that it's not going to be amazing, right? So it's just kind of like, so that's one of the things there, or no belief in a higher reality, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like concern about that. So that's what I've identified as a couple of the ingredients. Now, there's 3 other ingredients that I wanted to run by you, because it's not actually there's a group of ingredients I want to run by you. Okay, so body identification. Do you have body identification? Do you pledge the loyalty of your self-identity to your body?
Oh man,
to any degree?
To any degree, just to make it simple, I'll say yes.
Yeah, probably, right? Like, or in our industry, how can you not, right? So,
and the way I'm marketing myself, then 100%, yes.
Sure, and it's all good. By the way, I see your stuff comes up on my Facebook wall for some reason.
Don't touch any of my stuff, or it's going to show up in your face.
Okay,
for sure.
It looks great. By the way, it looks great. I'm excited for where things are going, and I would encourage you still do all that stuff. Still keep doing all that stuff, right?
Sure. Yep.
So body identification is one. So fear of the unknown in general. Fear of the unknown could be an ingredient.
That's an ingredient.
Is it all going to be over? Complete darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, that's kind of what I foresee. If someone's like, "What's death?" I'm like, "Nothing." Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it's unknown. How can you know? And does that make me afraid? Yeah, it makes me anxious to think about it. Is it something I have to accept? Well, yeah, or else I'm going to be crippled and I won't be able to do anything. And then to me, man, my brain went off in 12 different directions and I don't even know how to share it all, but I would say, fear of the unknown. It definitely resonates with me a lot.
Sure, I'll just throw that in there. Okay, good. Now, one that a lot of religious folks deal with
Hmm.
is pressure and stress of only one life to get it right. Pressure and stress that we
Oh yeah, sure, sure. Uh,
do you feel that one at all, or
no,
okay?
no. For me, like, I've come from a very different background. I struggled, not didn't struggle, but I didn't have the greatest, healthiest choices, habits, relationships with all things as a kid. So I've really tried to reinvent myself, and I really try and, I think the coolest part about what we do is that we teach it so much that it becomes a lot of what we do, right? So the best way to learn is to teach, and all of those variations that come along with it spiritually. You teach shame, and shame tends to move away from you, let's say. So um, a lot of self-acceptance for me is something I've been working on consistently. But
Yeah.
you know, like I said before, tying my productivity to my identity is something that I'm trying to let go of and meditate through and be more present with, and not anxiously spiral out of control, or at least try and pick more appropriate habits to down regulate and then reset my hormonal or stress levels or whatever the hell is going on in my body, because there's a lot of things, right? Um,
I call that the achiever's curse, by the way.
oh, geez. Yes. Yes. There
That's
was,
what I call that habit.
you ever heard of the hyper vigilance roller coaster?
Yeah, yeah. Darby taught me that.
Yeah. Sorry. So Kevin taught that in his habits course. And
Okay.
then, Jacob's been teaching it in my challenge on a monthly basis. And the challengers love it. They're like, man, I can resonate with that so much. And to me, I'm like, yeah, you push yourself too hard, you work too many 12-hour days in a row, and you're just slammed on the ground, right?
Mhm.
Can't move. But yeah, either way, I can definitely, the achiever's curse, you can call it that too.
That's what I call it. Yeah,
Mm,
it's because but it's based in a value, and you may not be
mm,
aware of that value.
sure, sure. Yeah.
There's a very specific value behind it.
I'd take me there, oh wise one. Not to
So
be condescending, but just, please.
now, there's a couple issues. There's issues related to the dying process that lead to fear of death. And I'm not sure if these issues are relevant to you or not. One is fear of physical suffering at the moment of death, fear of being abandoned, guilt to the pain and consequences of leaving others behind, just different things like that. Is that an area that's really relevant to you or no?
I mean, the amount of business debt that's been acquired to create what I'm doing is something I don't want to die with yet, because of the burden I think it would create for others. For me, I have a different relationship with money. Ultimately, whatever that means. If my family had to deal with that relationship with money, I very much believe they would be very conflicted as to what to do about it. Um, we don't have to unpack that, but I would say that would be the only thing. What would happen to people after I leave an emotional and spiritual level? I'm not sure. I haven't spent a lot of time meditating on it, and it
Okay.
hasn't really popped up in my subconscious much. So, um,
No worries. So here's the main four then. The main four that you need to know about
mhm,
that will get you past this. Okay, is lack of trust in a creator.
mm,
Now, if you were to take a look at Pascal, who was a mathematician,
yeah.
and are you familiar with Pascal's wager?
Pascal Boyer, is that who we're talking about right now?
No,
Uh,
no. Is it Pascal Boyer? I don't even
I'm
know.
just, yeah, I'm just trying to connect, but yeah, I would say, no, the wager, sure, lead
So
me.
basically, it's like when you do all the math and you measure out the advantages and disadvantages of believing and trusting in a creator to not believing and trusting in a creator.
Mhm.
It's definitely beneficial to believe and trust regardless of what's actually true.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
right, right.
it is in your best interest to pursue actual verifiable evidence of a creator that is trustworthy. And once you determine that, there are paths that will take you there. You've come across some low quality paths, I'll say. but there are actual high quality paths to take you there once you start searching. So that's one element. Now, fear of the unknown is kind of rooted in, I want to say, I would even want to get more specific on what the fear would be, because here's the thing: it has to do with a lack of that, and body identification have to do with a lack of understanding of the true self, or
Sure.
or what I would call, you can call it spiritual amnesia, or whatever you want to call it. Now, I can have a quick discussion with you about that and what I mean by that, because that's just a lot to just throw at somebody.
Sure. Yeah. My brain went in 12 directions without an outcome. So yeah.
So creating a healthy detachment from the reality of this finite world. Okay. So we exist in many different states, and we shift between them all the time. We exist in the wakeful state. We often deceive ourselves into believing it's like the ultimate highest reality. But we also exist in dream state. And we also exist in meditative state, psychedelic induced state, unborn state, death state. It's almost like changing stations on a radio. We are always cycling between various states of existence, right?
Sure.
Our mistake at its core is that we strongly identify with whatever state of existence we're in. When you're in a dream, you think it's real. And anyone who has seen you yelling and screaming in a bad dream can testify to that. You thought that was reality, man. You were screaming and yelling and tossing in your sleep.
Right.
You thought that was reality. It's like, and in wakeful state, we think this is all there is. And it's like, pay attention to how you shift between different states of existence.
Pay attention to different states of existence.
Yeah, really focus in on that.
I'm like really trying to disconnect with the level of analysis that my brain goes through. And try to get, my current understanding is to get out of, I think, beta thinking consistently, and just, if that's the right brain frequency, like I'm always analyzing. And I find in my morning meditations, I'm like sitting there like, trying to calm down, and I just woke up. Right. And it's interesting. This morning was tough. Some days I find that I can go into that meditative state more easily. But I think as stress and skills, I think, like, and this is just me venting, but like the demands of trying to be something you're not yet is like, man, like CEO world.
Curse.
Yeah, CEO world. It's like, hey, you need to do this. I'm like, I've never even heard of that. Give me the books. I'll watch the videos. Let me know. People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no idea. Anyways.
So absolutely. Here's what I want to tell you about yourself is that your strengths, your weakness can be your strengths misdirected. You've got a very active thought process. It's like having a 100 horsepower motor on a canoe. You just got to make sure you don't steer it in the wrong direction, or you go in that direction faster than most other people. Now, in order to make sure that you're going in a proper thought flow, and like one thought leads to another thought, you have to be meticulous about those sort of sliding door thoughts. And you have to have a high standard on it, because you will go very far in destructive direction if you don't pay attention to that dynamic. Ask me how I know this.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But
I was like, in which ways, when you were explaining it, I'm like, where'd he go? What did he do? What did you do, Fox? Tell me.
So questions direct focus. And so it's often helpful to have the right questions that will take you to the right focus. So I could say, you know, how many different states of existence do we really cycle between? You know, like, is this the only reality, or what more is there? And then those things will lead you to only the truth will set you free. They'll lead you to truth, essentially. Like, a lot of this falsehood will lead to suffering ultimately. That might not mean a lot to you right now, but at a later date, that might mean everything to you. Now, understanding that you exist in different states. Now, let me ask you this. Okay. Do you dream at night, or do you ever dream?
I was having very vivid dreams for a while there. And more so lately, I dream about like funnels and like, you know, like data. It's like, it's not that exciting. Why do you ask?
Well, how is life similar to a dream?
Hadn't finished that section of Freud yet. It's a beast. Did you read that, by the way? And I want to stick on that.
No, I didn't know Freud wrote about it.
Yeah, it's the interpretation of dreams, and is he's got an interesting thing. I was trying to read through it and I was like, man, I don't understand what this guy's saying. Anyways, how is life different than a dream?
Like, think about the dreamlike qualities of life. The dreamlike qualities, right? You know, it feels real when you're in it, right?
Yep.
You don't have control over everything going on in it.
True.
Things never remain fixed. Everything is evanescent. It's not permanent. It fades away. We deceive ourselves into thinking everything here is permanent, but we know it's an existence of entropy, like ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Like, this is not a very stable state of existence, right? There's similar characters. Everything we see and experience will vanish in one way or another, you know, varies in length. You know, the content can be anxiety producing, bizarre, frightening, magical, sexy, whatever. You know, it can be confusing and unclear meaning and purpose. You know, things that have existed no longer exist.
You spent a lot of time meditating on this. This is big.
There's no true stability in this world. There's no enduring state. Everything's in a constant state of change. Like, the thing is, realizing how dreamlike this reality is can help you gain healthy detachment to it. That is going to be the psychological outcome that will set you free, is a healthy level of detachment to this reality.
So realizing how dreamlike this reality is can help you progress towards a healthy detachment.
Yes.
I mean, for, you know, let's say unpacking purposes, for others, if they did want to listen to this and we repurpose this so people could identify, I don't know if anyone would understand what's going on right now. The vast majority of people would be very disconnected. And I'm just assuming, because I haven't really identified with a lot of people that ask these level of questions, but realizing how dreamlike reality is will help you evolve to a healthy detachment. I would say, is there emotion in that? My answer would be that I believe you become more emotionally aware, but less emotionally reactive. What would you say that?
What happens is this: when you free yourself of this attachment to this reality, there's much less pressure. You still follow your purpose and your calling, because that's inside you, and almost like a spiritual GPS, you're going to have your conscience and your intuition and your motivational drive prompting you to act. However, you can act without a sense of desperation, without a sense of like frustration and anxiety, and it can liberate you from the suffering emotional states. Ironically, when you liberate yourself from those suffering emotional states, you are better able to perform in this reality. The less you care about this reality, the more capable you become in this reality.
Sure. That's a quote that I'm going to repeat a million times. I mean, I mean, like that's hard to, that one is like, the less you care about this reality, the more like, that's so ironic and backwards in any which way you look at it. So it's like, but if you care a ton about this reality, then you would perform better in it for the people who also experience it, utilitarian or altruistically. Greatest good for greatest number. Shouldn't you care more? But it's like, the less you care, the more effective you become, based on the original conversation or premise we talked about, which is really fascinating.
If you truly care, you'll identify who you need to be to do what you need to do.
Right.
And if you truly care, you will realize that you need healthy detachment from this reality. You need to just be able to, sometimes if something doesn't happen, like for me in this life, like I just think, well, this reality is overrated anyway. Who cares? I go to sleep at night, it's gone. I forget about everything that happened during the day. I'm always paying attention to this dynamic so I can live and just be free of it. It's almost like nothing can stick to you.
Yeah.
But you still follow that inner calling. It doesn't mean that you go barefoot and eat a baguette in a park and wear tie-dye and listen to hippie music. No, it means that you still do what you're here to do,
right?
But you're better capable at doing it once you have that healthy detachment from this reality. And it would serve you best to find and support evidence that will help you make that A to B shift. You need to make that A to B shift from this is the ultimate, this reality is the ultimate, to no. I'm here for a time. It's not the ultimate. In fact, it's very, well, here's what I would say to you. And whatever you think, there's no wrong answer. Is there a clear and distinct way of telling the difference between reality and dreaming?
I mean, I'm like scared to answer based on your first dissection of.
I don't have an answer. I'm not going to make you look dumb. Nothing.
No, it wasn't like that. I was just like, I don't know. I feel like you have 50 answers and I got nothing in my brain. Was more or less the, no shame on the difference of awareness. Yeah, I would say, is there a difference?
How can you tell the difference between reality and dreaming?
Post experience.
Ooh, post experience. So is it possible you might have a post experience where you wake up to a higher reality that served as a backdrop to this reality and be like, whoa, that was an interesting dreamlike experience. I thought my name was Kyle Rausch. That was a rumor my parents started. I thought I was my body, even though my body was changing and transforming the whole time. But I thought I was this. I thought it was that was interesting. Is it possible that might happen?
I mean, like, yes, but I'm struggling to identify with that possibility only because I haven't experienced something like that outside of maybe shifting some habitual relations with things, identifying that purpose is something that grows, seeing the shift in like many different things of my character. I can then look back and be like, I can't believe I was so naive and mature, retrospective perspectives. But to step out of into a different dimension, I mean, I can see the ties in the egocentric values of saying my name is Kyle Rausch and all of those things, and the rumor that it is, because ultimately it's a fad that caught on. I can identify with what you're saying, but the shift is where I'm not able to identify.
Yeah, the shift, it'll take time with the shift, right? All you want to do right now is sort of plant some seeds that will grow into something beautiful that'll help you turn your life into a masterpiece by giving you inner peace. That's what this is all about. It's all about how the path to inner peace. And the thing with this, awakening to a higher reality, change needs a changeless backdrop. Everything in this existence is changing. There has to be an eternal backdrop that's changeless to this. That is just a fact of reality. That's a tough pill to swallow in terms of understanding that. But as you start to think and mull over some of these thoughts, eventually they'll start to click. I would say this to you. I would say what we're doing here is, it's almost like wisdom can be like medicine. And sometimes you need the right prescription for a very specific problem. But it doesn't help if you just take one pill one time. You need to fulfill the prescription. So you need to say, this is what I need. I need to take it on a regular basis if I want to truly create lasting change. And what I'm saying is, this requires correctives of perspectives. And there are perspectives that will set you free, but you also, like a corrective for the body, I say twice a day.
Yeah, that's why I'm giggling. Shit, go ahead.
Say the same things for correctives of the mind.
Yeah.
You know, create a healthy detachment from this reality. Then I'd also go into create a healthy detachment from body identity. You know, people get infected with this I am my body virus, right?
Oh yeah, right.
But it's like, I would encourage people to question that. Think of it like an onion. Once you start peeling back your true self from it, something's going to be left, and that something is real. So for example, if I said to you, you know, you might be in that state where you're really identified with the body, but now, are you the blood that is flowing inside the body? Is that you? Yes or no?
My brain's melting. So, I mean, everything inter-are. Well, I am you, you are me, and we are the sun, right? So, I would say yes, and you're my blood, and I'm your blood. Now, that sounds really twisted for others to understand, but I just think that if everything is interconnected, then yes.
So that is a different way of looking at it. Now, that's a way of looking at what you are, going to the interbeing.
Okay.
If I go into what you are not, then we can go into peeling back from the I am the body virus. I would say where you're going is you're going a step ahead. That would be step 2. Going into
I skip steps all the time.
Yeah,
like,
you're going
shit, I
into
should
a
have done
healthy,
number 1.
whatever. And you can do the interbeing one. There's many answers you could come up with for that too. Interbeing not being the only one, but
I would say
this. You might say, well, and I would want you to know this intellectually, experientially. If you donate blood, did you lose a part of your identity, your true self, or no? Right?
I would say no.
Exactly. So in the same way, you cut your nails, it's gone. It wasn't really your true self. Your consciousness wasn't in it.
Right.
You're no longer perceiving reality from the perspective of that blood that had been removed, right?
Right.
You know, you could say, are you the skin? Yes or no? What happens if part of your skin is torn off? Do you go with it? Is your identity divided or no?
Right. Again, no.
All right. So we say, okay, well, that's a layer we're peeling off the onion. Are you the bones?
Well, no, not if you take a limb off you, except there's some suggestion about phantom limbs, which I don't have an experience with. A lot of people will correlate and suggest that they can feel pain in that limb that's no longer there. Because I haven't lost one, I don't know how to identify with it.
Yeah, so when a bone is surgically removed, your identity isn't going along with that removed bone.
Fair.
So
sure.
you're not still like,
yeah, right.
Phantom limb is one thing, but you're not like, hey man, like the weather is really cold right now on the African safari where my leg is laying, where an elephant ripped it off.
Sure.
And a part of me is still there and I'm feeling it, man. It's raining on my leg right now. I got to go back there. No, it's not really the true self. All right, neither are any of the limbs, because if you lose any of your limbs, you're not losing you in essence. You know, we could say, are you the space that is occupied by your body? Well, how does that make sense? You were once much smaller. You know, so which are you? Are you the previous shape of the body? Or are you the current shape? Like, where are you really? Like, and then, you know, some people might say, I am what is under my control. Some people would counter with that argument, like, I can wiggle my fingers, that's me, right? This is me.
Sure, yep.
Right now, right? So I could say, sure, but do you know what's happening inside your body and how much is not under your control? Do you actually control your digestion? We swallow the food, then the nutrients are broken down and they go to the body parts that need it. Protein goes to the muscle that needs to rebuild. calcium to the bone for your bone density. Did you do that? Or was it done for you? Does the ego falsely take credit? Oh yeah, I got my protein in, I built my muscles. I'm like, oh, there was some intelligent, intentional force doing it on your behalf that you might have taken credit for.
Sure.
Or were you actively doing it? Were you actively doing your immunity? Right?
Sure.
We get attacked, like 99% of the things you get attacked for, all the pathogens you're not even aware of. Something is operating your immune system and dealing with it for you. It's not really you.
Right.
Because you're not your muscle growth, your bone growth, even like breathing at times can be intentional. During sleep, it's done for you. Like, is that really you? It's not circulation, elimination, thinking. A lot of times
the essence come down to I'm sorry, I just like I got stuck at this one like thing. Does the essence of who you are no longer become a thing as soon as consciousness has ended? Right? So you know, you take a bone, no, you take 15 bones, maybe, right? You know, I know that the essence and my spiritual projection is likely to shift if I have, you know, severe injuries in, you know, brachial plexus or sacrolumbar plexus somewhere, like just being in pain, you know, nervously, I'm going to be, you know, definitely projecting a different level of me, at least for a time until I've adjusted or, you know, met some level of acceptance with it, or coke myself up with a bunch of different drugs. You know, I don't know if I'd ever be identified, just be one grumpy old man in a lot of pain because I haven't. My girlfriend was trying to give me Gravol. It's a different story. I was like, no, I'm good. But that's my question. Is at some point, if you lose enough of these things, is that when you die, does that essence disappear?
Well, here's what I would say. Have you ever been in a dream and got really scared, something bad happens, and then you wake up? Right?
Yep.
If you were to lose 15 bones and all of a sudden your consciousness is no longer attached to the body, might you have then shifted to another channel of observing and consciousness and another state of existence in the same way we do from dreams?
There's plausibility, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, so,
it's hard to identify without experiencing it, right?
Yeah. So that is where being an experiencer of shifting states of existence can give you evidence and verification for the eternal changeless self. And that's where you'll get people like an Alan Watts, who you mentioned earlier, who might experiment with psychedelic drugs and stuff and become very spiritual as a result. Realizing like, hey, you think this stuff is all like what's really going on, but really it's more like a show, right?
Yeah, the light works of life, or the fireworks of life.
Yeah. So I think even, you know, some people think I think therefore I am, but I think thinking even of itself isn't even under our voluntary control. And anybody who has tried and failed at meditation would know that. Like a lot of thoughts are coming through you from out of nowhere. It could be like, I'm just sitting here, and then all of a sudden, like, pink elephant, where the heck did that come from?
You get
How does that even make any sense? You know, like people just think the silliest thing. So, you know, I think one of the things is to peel back the layers of the body as part of your true self. You might realize that it's a tool for observing this reality. You know, that basically the body is the name we give to a series of changes that involve the transformation of food and the constant decay and renewal and decay from cradle to grave. And really, I would say that a really easy way to grasp it is that the body is like a light bulb, but the true self is like the electricity that illuminates the bulb. Now, if your indwelling spirit or your electricity in that body bulb leaves, then it becomes nothing but a rotting mess. And the people that love you and care about you the most won't even want to go near it because it'll stink so bad. Like, it's not really the true self. The true self is more of this shapeshifter that's traveling through different states of existence. Lots of heavy stuff there. And I'm just throwing it at you and saying that if you direct your thoughts in this direction, as opposed to the direction it may have been going, then you can find the inner peace you've always been after. The inner peace that your accomplishments can never really give you, because even when you achieve things, they could have always been done better, or you could have always done more, or somebody else always did it better.
Right.
The emotions you're after can be better found through this journey than through the journey of those outside things. A lot of it has to do with the journey of remembering your true identity.
Right.
And your true self before we kind of got caught up in this hypnosis of the human story. So that's a little bit about, the reality. The other thing I would want to talk to you about that can really help with the direction of where you want to go in a practical way is this. Okay, so we had, right now we have, there's two really big topics here.
You sure you want to go there? I want to be respectful of your time, Fox.
Oh man, you kidding? I mean, this is okay. There's two really big topics here.
Okay.
And one of them I want to. Oh man, one of them is the achiever's curse, just completely unpacked. But that's a whole other topic. I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah, fair. I'll come and visit you guys, and you can group talk about it at some point.
Let's go into this one here.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I want to go into, the lack of trust in a creator. Okay, let's talk about how this system is flawed. You've experienced that the system is flawed. I've experienced the system is flawed. What do we do about it? Like, that's really the crossroads we're at. Both you and I have come into this reality and this dimension from the land of oblivion. We don't know who we were before and where we were before. There's something exciting about that, but there's something also encouraging about knowing that we're all in this together, right? And we're trying to figure this stuff out. And we struggle with our frustrations as we journey forward. And I found this. Here's what it comes down to. We're going to use, for convenience, we can say God instead of creator. Other people prefer the term universe. Doesn't really matter. We're kind of thinking about the same thing. Whether you want to use an avatar of a man with a gray beard sitting with a scepter on a cloud, or whether you want to think of it almost like this force that's just permeating everything, doesn't matter. Whatever concept you want to use is cool.
Sure.
So here's a question just for discussion. No right or wrong answer, right? What's the difference between knowing about God and knowing God?
Well, it was what we talked about at the beginning, between faith and fact. About God is like a study, is like to, somehow. Well, now I'm getting lost, because knowing is also an experience of, if I say knowledge, it's something that I must have acquired through some practical application. So, I mean, knowing about God and knowing God, it sounds like the same thing in essence. People speak of God, and then knowing God must be a relationship. Like, you must have had some form of connection to this permeating thing, or the guy with the beard, like whatever that is. Knowing must be this direct connection in order for it to be, maybe not fact, but that's how I'm interpreting it.
Good. I love it. So I like the way you've kind of summarized it. Belief is like secondhand rumor, right? Like somebody saying, "Oh, this is what it is," and blah blah. And like, look, how many times are rumors untrue? Like, people don't know. Like, human beings aren't reliable to give perfect testimony, and it always gets tainted with like exaggeration, generalization, ego, hidden motives. If it's somebody who's collecting money from you and they're telling you things, like, who knows how that's affecting them in terms of what they're going to tell you, right? Like,
sure.
I think belief, knowing about, gives you a starting point to see for yourself. That's what it should be. But too often people settle there. You should not settle there. It is a transition point. And that's what I've seen in mainstream churches, that people settle there, and they talk about God all day long, but they all live disempowered lives because they haven't taken it to the next level.
Can I propose, out of a fear of maybe how they used to be? I think some people, I don't, want to say names or anyone to associate with, but I know that for me, I identified as a Buddhist because I left a lot of my unhealthy, connections and egocentric ties to the life before. So someone's like, well, what do you identify with? And I'm like, well, I'm a Buddhist, and then moved in with a pastor. So I became a Boostian, and then moved around. So I just like all encompassing experience. And someone else important to me, let's say, I had a very similar transition, and identified with Christianity out of leaving the old self behind, whatever that means. So there's a lot of ways to go with that. But you're saying that arrival is not an ending point; it's a starting point, and that I can resonate a ton with that, right? I think something that just came up for me is like, you don't remember everything. So you might be asking the same questions over and over. And only until you reach a certain number of, let's say, intellectual repetitions are you going to be able to, remember and then identify and then be able to use that as a new pivot point.
Yeah. So,
right. Sorry.
Yeah. So I loved it. I loved everything you just said there. Great, on point. And what I really respect is your journey through different religious perspectives. And I would say this: the truth of the Creator is like light shining through a stained glass window. All the different religions are like the different pieces of that stained glass window, and they all put their different color and slant on the truth of what is, but you can experience the truth coming through all of it. Coming through all of it. So, and eventually all of it creates this beautiful tapestry and you'll be able to find the truth. But spiritual pride may create some barriers to seeing that and may create some borders. But I would say, I honor and respect people who are on the journey, regardless of which perspectives they're looking at the truth through at that time. Like, I think it's great. You're looking. That's perfect. That's a perfect starting point. I think that knowing God, fact as you call it, is all about a personal relationship. It's all about experience. And only this way can you ever get true certainty, inner peace, and confidence. Now it's real. It's got to be real to you, Like, can you really know what a good recipe is just by reading the ingredients? Or do you have to see it, smell it, touch it, taste it? That's where everybody's like lost. They don't take it to that next level. And radical acceptance for the stuff in life that we can't control can come from this attitude of total faith in the Creator through personal experience. That's what gives people a sense of security amidst insecure circumstances. But to acquire that attitude, you need more than intellectual belief and book study, period.
Of course.
And it has to be cultivated like a skill. And you have to do it yourself. It's a do it yourself project. So here's what I would say. Here's the method that I use for this. And if you use this method, as others I've taught have, it can be one of the most profound, transformative, liberating things you ever do with your mental effort and focus, simply because of the results it can bring. Okay? So I would say this. You ever played hide and go seek growing up?
100%.
Find somebody hiding?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Of course. So why not make it fun? Play it like a game. Hide and go seek, like divine hide and go seek. We're going to try to find personal evidence of the Creator in hiding. Here's why. How do you know the wind exists?
Because you've experienced it? People have spoken of it?
Its effects on things, right?
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, you can see it. You can like, oh, that happened because of the wind, right? Similarly, in order to actually find evidence of the Creator, you're looking for evidence of the Creator's effects in the world, like wind. That's how you want to go looking for it and hiding. All right?
So I'm stuck on the, and maybe you're going to unpack this and I'm probably interjecting far too soon, but now I'm stuck in, I'm really trying to study and understand manifestation, but I'm just like, I'm just recreating a lot of my subconscious relationships with everything that's kind of happening to me, the way I'm looking at my workouts, the way I'm looking at certain notifications as they pop up. I'm really trying to repackage things to manifest different outcomes, to be consistently having a perspective on things and giving me a state of, anyways. Is that not confirmation bias at its finest? Or like, is that not just me sitting here, like trying to confirm all of these events? And now I'm going to focus more on that directive, and then long-term compounding effects create the outcome.
Okay, so you're
Maybe,
saying, is this confirmation bias that we look for something and we find evidence of it because we're looking for it, correct?
yeah, you read the Bible and then you see a lot of effects of Jesus everywhere, and then correlate that to say that now, well, Jesus is in that. And I'm like, well, I'm just getting over the hump of surrendering to something I don't understand.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's yours. It's yours. Do it. Help me. I can't do it alone. Clearly, it's messing me up. That's the hump I'm at. But
So I would say this: we want something that's really convincing, and we want to verify that it's not confirmation bias. Okay, so let's have
okay.
that standard.
Yep.
Let's have that standard. The same way you would apply that standard to wind. You see a flag blowing, oh, that's confirmation bias because you believe in wind. You think it was the wind. That flag is blowing because there's a massive asteroid that just flew past the Earth and it created a gust. So we want to apply confirmation bias in the same intelligent way you would with wind. You believe in wind, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so try to treat it like that. And so I'm a big fan of just don't BS yourself. Like, just because you see some image in a piece of toast and it's like a holy figure, I'm like, come on, man. Like, you know better than that, right? Like, confirmation bias all the way. We're not looking for that stuff, right? We're looking for something that's a real effect that we can't explain realistically, right? So, and we already talked about a number of them. So let's start off. I think there's really like 4 hiding spots to look for these effects, this wind-like thing. And the wind-like thing is more of an intelligent and intentional force that supports us.
Okay.
Intelligent and intentional force. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for something that seems like kind of like really, I don't know. It seems like too much of a stretch here. Like, we're just trying to keep it really straight and narrow here. So here, right. We already talked about a couple, right? Like, think about your immune system, right? We talked about that. Yep. Our intention isn't disturbed by it. It's done on our behalf. We survive life-threatening attacks on a daily basis. Is this the result of chance with the molecules? Or is there some sort of intentional, intelligent force supporting us?
Hard to say, but it's a good question.
Yeah. Now, why is it hard to say?
My brain went, if you got hit by a car, then those molecules connecting to you at such a pace ultimately led to your demise. And why we take a Kobe Bryant situation and correlate something so good into a situation, or let's say achieve some level of excellence. I can't speak as if I knew him on a personal level,
okay,
but he emulated a lot of great things. So why would we want? I mean, I wept out of the essence of what he represented. And I'd never connected with him at all. I was in tears, and I don't cry often, probably should, or whatever that means. But it was an interesting experience. And how can you correlate to say that an intentional force did that? I'm hoping that an intentional force didn't do that, but then then why? Why are you hoping that intentional force didn't? And then it becomes a very landslide conversation. But is
I would say this, from where I can see things and where you're at right now, I would say we haven't done the prep work yet to ask that question.
Okay, sure.
So I would say there's a lot of, I would say you the one thing I really love about you, man, you're all about just getting to the top of that pyramid. You just go right to the top. I feel like if we ever went mountain climbing, you'd be at the peak when I'm halfway up, and you'd be like, "Fox, where are you?" I'd be like, "Come on, man, I'm not as jacked as you.
Come on, tell me
I'm trying to enjoy the journey
just
up
as
there."
competitive. I know you'd be racing me to the top for sure.
I'd be like, so I would say that kind of a question, we would not be, I would say we haven't done enough inquiry yet to give that kind of a question fair contemplation.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So that's what I would say with that. And perhaps there'll be other questions like that. But I would say, can blind forces really arrange themselves in such a way as to organize, the cell factory we see within us and the immune system? Is that just chaos, or is there some sort of order behind it all?
I can imagine there could be both. And I can't say no, so I must say yes. Right.
Okay, so that's fine wherever you're at. Now, I would also say this: we're looking for the effects on things, the intelligent, intentional support. Okay, that's what I would define as God, how God shows up like the wind, right?
Okay.
How are we supported through repair and recovery? This is a hiding spot. Okay. Now, I would say this: if you take your keys and you scratch your car, does your car repair itself, or does that scratch kind of remain there indefinitely?
Right.
Right. It kind of remains there, but if you scratch or cut yourself, do forces that you're not even aware of immediately set in motion a process to renew and repair you without you being even disturbed and distracted by it? Like if we had to intentionally coordinate all those cells, like, okay, the minute you cut yourself, immediately you got cells migrating from the upper arm to go create a scab for you.
Right.
If that was up to our conscious control, if that was our free will and intention, we'd probably screw that up. The same way that we lose our car keys, I'd forget to do my healing scab process properly.
Sure.
Like,
sure.
I can't be given that kind of responsibility. Are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah.
There is some sort of outside force there, or you could think it's just chance chaos. Well, those molecules just bumped into each other and had meaningful encounters, and somehow, Alan Watts, actually, you mentioned earlier, he presented a good argument against this. He said, people will say that if you sit a monkey at a typewriter long enough, it's going to type up the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. And that's how people who don't believe in this order or intentional intelligent force will justify the existence we live in. We have plants and animals, but that's all like monkey typewriter business, right? Like anything could just, molecules can come together like this. So that's been a common argument for those who are in spiritual doubt, right? But then the other counter argument is, it would take billions of years probably. But then isn't it likely, and Watts says, isn't it likely that within, a couple seconds, that monkey's going to go back to typing gibberish? Like how to be able to then sustain all of these intelligent forms of the molecules does require something far bigger than that. And scientists have said that when you do the math on it, it is madly improbable. And I think it was Fred Hoyle was the science that said it is madly improbable to deny this intelligent, intentional force. He said it's like he said it actually takes more faith to believe in that than to believe in God. And that what happens is it's like you're believing that everything we see around you is like a tornado going into a junkyard and creating a 747 Boeing jet. It's like blind forces couldn't have done this kind of complexity.
Sure.
Right? So if we take a look at, you have about 50 trillion cells in your body, and they're all performing their unique duties. It's like a factory. The liver cells do the liver thing. Spleen cells do the spleen thing. There's some sort of well-meaning guidance that's directing this cell factory, You know, what's happening inside your body on a daily basis is absolutely incredible.
Sure.
But we take it for granted, and our ego falsely assumes that we're the ones doing it, right? And it breaks the laws of physics, the second law of thermodynamics, right? Things are supposed to go from order to chaos and not the other way around. Yet that law is broken inside us. And
Sure.
how do we explain it, even from the level of physics, right?
Mhm.
Is this the wind essence we're talking about, right? That's what I'm saying. Is this evidence of that wind type force?
Hmm.
So what about some of our survival instincts and reflexes, right?
Sure.
We have a lot of survival instincts and reflexes that support us. Is that chance chaos, or is there some sort of intelligent support, right? We're hungry when we need food. How the heck does that happen? You boil it down to the cells and you go a level deeper than that and level deeper than that. Eventually you have no idea how the heck it's happening. How do I get the sensation of hunger? Like we can explain it on more of a macro level, but the more you go micro, you realize like, no, this doesn't make sense. At some level, we're lost.
Yeah. Right.
You know? How are we supported through the cardiovascular system? You know, your heart beating when you're not thinking about it, when you're sleeping at night. The digestive process we talked about, you know, that we take for granted that we're not doing it. We're putting the food in and we say, I digested that. It's like, no. Did you manufacture the specific enzymes needed for that thing? How did you intelligently shuttle the nutrients to where they needed to go? Where is that supportive guiding action coming from? It's like the wind. We can't see it, but we can see its effects.
Right.
You know, how are we supported through the process of assimilation, right? Like your whole physical body is nothing but transformed food. Transformed food became your eyeballs. That is an incredible magic trick. Please explain to me how the heck that happened on a really micro level.
It's like a comedy stand-up. That one line. Just golden.
Yeah, it's like, you know, all these molecules are the building blocks of life. But what guides those molecules to arrange themselves into ways that supports you and supports your body vehicle? From a materialistic standpoint, from spiritual doubt, it would be like dumping a pile of bricks on the ground and they just randomly assemble themselves into a grand cathedral. Can that happen without some sort of an inner guidance or a master architect, right? And what I'm trying to get at is this conception of the creator or God is not what's being taught in the church that we have to blindly believe and pledge allegiance to, but it's actually, you know, the greatest form of love for the creator is to look for evidence that verifies the creator's activity in your life already. Almost like a secret admirer doing all this stuff for you, but hiding behind the scenes, not taking credit. Like, and it is that kind of attitude that would set people free. You know, and I could go on and on about just the hiding spot in the body.
Sure.
You know, there's a million different things I could say. I had the most spiritual experience the other day, man. I woke up and I took a piss. Boom. So spiritual. You know why? I was like, I'm pissing right now. And I wake up and I'm like, I'm playing hide and go seek today. Divine hide and go seek. I'm looking for it. I wake up, I take a piss. I'm like, something all night long was collecting the things that are going to poison me and kill me and put them here. And I open the faucet and I take credit. Something was giving me the process of elimination and doing this for me. I'm like, how many times have I taken credit when I took a piss that I took a piss? And I'm like, no, something did all the work and then I took the credit. Right. And don't you even
I love it.
I know you're one of those guys. True or false?
Go for it.
When you were a kid and you had to take a pee outside in the winter, you tried to spell your initials, didn't you?
Everyone. How is that a one of those guys thing? I thought that was in every one of the guys thing. You know, I thought that was the girls were jealous type thing.
So the thing I would say is the human ego falsely assumes credit for all of these actions inside us. We think we build our bones, manufacture our blood, grow our brain, and everything else without some sort of divine aid, just like the wind. There's an intelligence we don't understand that's executing the body, yet we think we're in control. Is this unseen force trustworthy? Should we turn to this force? You know, I would say explore this hiding spot until you are overwhelmed with the conclusion that this creator God, this unseen intelligent force is living inside you, like really everywhere. Like then that empowers you with such confidence and such peace for facing all of those challenges in our day-to-day life. So that would be hiding spot one. And I would say, if you really want to change, like as far as prescribing medication, do that on a daily basis and get really good at finding those hiding spots. It never, and I just keep finding more and more hiding spots, but every time I do, it levels me up in terms of my resilience. My resilience gets leveled up, and then I'm able to be the best me day by day. Suffering emotions can't get a foothold on me because I'm like, I got something on my side. I don't know what it is exactly. I'm learning. It's like the wind. I know it exists because I see its effects, and I know it's supporting me, but I got something on my side. And that sort of confidence can give you that day-to-day strength you need to be the best you. You might think also, hiding spot number two. How is this same force playing hide and go seek inside your thoughts and emotions? Do you ever have random good ideas pop into your head? Do you ever wonder if there was a logical process to come up with that good idea? Like you had to have connected the dots in a logical order. How can you all of a sudden have this? Boom, it just hit me, right? We'll take for granted that we had a good idea. No, a good idea may have come through us, but not from us. We didn't construct it step by step until it eventually manifested in our thoughts. What about our conscience? What is it? Where does it come from? Right? Like our conscience. When we do something really bad, we feel it. Like our whole being, right? I say it's like a spiritual GPS. It lets us know when we're off track. Like, hey, if you keep doing this, you're really going to hate yourself. Like, don't do that. You're getting a warning. It's like an inner coach inside, right? What about intuition? Is that from the flesh and body or from the unseen realm? Can you measure your intuition in a petri dish or in any other scientific measuring device? Is it from the world of bodies or is it from some other dimension we don't quite understand? And yet it serves us. We make a lot of important decisions based on intuition. What about, the virtuous desires that come upon you? The desire to help others and love and connect. And these spontaneous feelings that serve us. We feel good about it, right? Or gut feelings. Have you ever had a gut feeling that you needed to like reach out and talk to somebody? Or anything like that? And then it just turned out to be just the right thing when you needed it. Right? Where did that feeling come from? We take credit for it. And there could be moments. There could be moments when you were in the middle of something really hard in your life. And all of a sudden a tremendous sense of peace and calm came over you. Where the heck did that come from? How do you explain that, on a really micro level?
Sure. Right.
Right?
I mean, we talk about at the beginning the direction of your thoughts and how far and fast you can go with them. And, for me, it can be within the same minute. And that's really what I'm working on is within that minute, like how quickly can I transition and how long can I stay? And then if I go back, how long does it take for me to notice and pull myself back? Right. Because your thoughts create your outcomes. Right. And, it's, sorry, I'm just kind of resonating with what you're suggesting, but that level of calm I find is what I feel when I'm trying to manifest positive futures for myself, and then finding gratitude in that future and thanking the supreme being or creator for it now, if that makes sense, as a part of Dispenza's process. And for me, I'm just trying to remain humble with it. Just I'm not the teacher, I'm the student, so I'm happy to study through experience, right? So anyways, that it's just kind of what I felt, and there is a surreal sense of calm. And then to study that on a really deep level, that's just where I go when I'm trying to lean into manifestation. If that's highly correlated with a divine creator, it just an overwhelming sense of calm is what I feel.
So what I love is that what you've basically explained is this awareness that your emotions are guiding you to what is right and what is wrong. They're
Okay.
almost giving you a navigation system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And without that navigation system, you could be lost in darkness for an eternity.
Sure.
Right? Suffering in many ways is a gift because it lets us know that we're off course.
Right.
And we don't even know where we want to go yet. We're like, we need to go somewhere other than this, but
Mm-hmm.
where we want to go changes so much during the course of our life. Right? Like, and I think we talked about it before. We think we want the outside things, but like the money and success, but really we want the emotions that we think those things will give us.
Right.
And then we think we want the emotions and really we want this other thing. And so that can change all the time. As we move forward on the journey, the destination starts to become more and more clear until eventually it ends up being a specific desire that can kind of free us from all of these troubles. So the recognition of truth and wisdom, you might intuitively know something's true when you hear it. Where does that come from? Sometimes I'll have a feeling come over me like, I need to highlight this. I don't know when I'm going to use this, but I need to highlight this. Where does that sensation come from? It's just like, there's a lot of this going on inside our thoughts and emotions where you can see the activity almost like the wind. It's supporting us without us actually doing it. Right? I would also say, as a third hiding spot, how is the divine hiding inside other beings? In the same way that they're biologically supported, or we're biologically supported, so are they. But this is what I'd like to ask you, who placed the love for you in the hearts of other people?
Yeah, right.
Did they really put it there, or did it just they fell in love, or did love for you come through them for you?
I mean, like,
many people take that for granted.
Well, I went like left brain and right brain. Like I was full like symbiosis in the study of, interconnecting mammals. And then also like people are fascinating to observe. And I observed you in like a very stitched moment, but then thought of my girlfriend and my mom and all these different people. And it's like, you don't actually fully ever get to experience what they're experiencing. So, is it like we can study and suggest that we're all witnessing similar fireworks of life and go through similar neurochemical transitions and have experiences much the same, excitement, sadness, all of these different emotions, but you don't know what they're feeling. You can empathize and see it and feel it with them, but is that the same feeling? Are you feeling something but they're feeling something slightly off and different? And I mean, that's where my brain went. But as a creator or supreme anything, giving those people their experience. And I mean, if we look for the evidence and we go back to all the forces happening, how can there be so many possibilities of experiences happening all at once, right? If everyone is going through this, just the confusion of the molecular biology deep within us, the vast array of experiences currently happening in the billions right now is fascinating. And the level of interconnections and how many people they know is now in the multi-trillions. It's just it's surreal.
And I was gonna get to all of this stuff. You're jumping ahead of me again.
I'm sorry. Did I? Yeah, I did.
I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this very thing.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to totally talk about it because here's the thing. There's a lot we don't understand, right? And so I'll give you some perspective on that might bring you peace, because otherwise you're going to have this constant. Because I know I've certainly struggled from it. This constant just striving to just have it all figured out, right? So I might say that I would submit the consideration that the love of others is actually the love of God or the creator in disguise, and I would look for evidence of that. And, how did parental love get inside my parents? Was it a conscious choice or something that just happened? They sacrificed everything for me. Was I really doing anything meaningful for them? No, but for some reason they were inspired to support me as I entered this dimension. And, and I was very valuable to them for no logical reason, right? We're not living in a rural area where they need me to help out on the farm or anything like that. It's like, no, but for some reason where did those feelings come into that person for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or who inspired others to love us when we were the most unlovable? I think of myself as a rebellious teenager. I'm like, man, people loved me back then. Oh, I was such a turd. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
who inspires the loyalty of true friends? Where does that come from? Do we actually like construct it like a recipe with ingredients, or does it just come through us?
Mm.
These virtues are just placed in us that actually and placed in others that support us.
You know,
And I would also say this: who conceived and created everyone you care about and designed them from an engineering perspective? You know, you can talk about your girlfriend and parents and friends and family, like just as an artist is behind every great painting, you know, they have two eyes, presumably, a nose in the middle of the face, a mouth, whatever their hair color is, and all that stuff. There has to be some sort of engineer behind that being. You can't have a watch without a watchmaker. And there must have been an intentional design behind them, right? So I almost look at it like, who created the masterpiece of the people I love in my life, right? And then I'd also say, you know, how does the intelligent, intentional support show up in strangers? You know, and all, teachers, mentors, guides, role models. How are other people used as living instruments to support you? Have you ever noticed how someone might say something to you that is more profound than you might expect from their level of education and experience? Like, okay, how did that perfect wisdom I need come from that vessel? Are you kidding me? Right? But sometimes that will happen. Maybe a kid or a child says something that blows your mind because of how wise it is, you know, like, or somebody who has limited education, life experience gives you breakthrough wisdom, right? Is some force like the wind using them as a tool, you know? And think of how we have so many resources contributed to us, right? Like, I would say an automobile is a convenience that supports my life. Someone was inspired to create that vehicle. Someone was inspired to manufacture it. Today, I had to get my car repaired, and someone has inspired and built their life around doing car repairs. Thank goodness, because I wouldn't have had anybody, you know, when I took that piss in the toilet, somebody was inspired to make toilets for a living.
Sure.
That inspiration was put in them, and they, in a way of interbeing, they support this grand performance. Everyone's playing a role, right? What has inspired people to play those roles? And then I would say, you know, to continue, like, who is the architect behind the beauty of flowers, or the engineer behind ocean ecosystems that are so perfect, and all the symbiotic relationships of animals and nature, or behind dogs, like dogs with their lovingness and their unconditional acceptance and almost being like spiritual teachers that live with you. Like, who invented dogs, right? Like, I'd go looking for all that evidence. And then there's a fourth hiding spot. I'd go after circumstances and events in life. You know, have you ever had a pain, illness, loss, delay, denial where it benefited you in the long run? Right? We don't get what we want, but we get something we need and benefit from more, whether that's increased motivation, openness to new experiences and opportunities, something that serves us better. You know, sometimes good things fall apart so something better can come together, as has often been said, the famous quote, right?
Yep.
Einstein said, coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. Einstein also said there's two ways to live. Either nothing's a miracle or everything is a miracle. There's two ways to live, and you're going to be in camp A or camp B. This is more camp B, that everything's a miracle. And this is how you get initiated into camp B. And when you're in camp B, you can be that person you were meant to be, because it frees you from all this other junk that's holding you back. All of the fears and anxieties. Camp A is more like a prison. You know, like, it's a prison camp more than anything, right?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It's a mental reality. It's worse than a hell. You can't, it's worse than a prison. You can't get away from it. You know, like, you know, I'd also say, you know, how have random situations served your benefit? You know, maybe you missed a turn on a road, but a terrible car accident happens. You know, and what about the everyday miracles that support us? Okay, like, You want to talk about cardio from a fitness perspective, and we go deep on these discussions. We can forget that we're really health and fitness professionals, and that's what we do for a living. We talk about cardio, and it's like this. Here's the thing with cardio. An acorn grows into a tree. How the heck does that happen? That is a magic trick if I've ever seen. This little acorn becomes a massive tree. But then guess what? Those trees are your external lungs. They breathe in carbon dioxide, they breathe out oxygen. They are your lungs on the outside, and you never knew it, and you never gave it credit. And it all begins with this magic trick of an acorn. Like, talk about what's really going on with cardio, the full reality when you pay attention to it. You realize that a lot of stuff is set up to support us. There's a master architect that's putting this all together, although we take credit for it. We're like, yeah, my cardio is really good. Great. Did you thank the tree? Or did you thank like all these other things that are behind it?
Yeah.
Like there's so many things like this that we can't explain. How does an egg become a chicken? You're taking your chicken breast for your protein at lunch. You ever think about how the heck that egg transformed into a chicken? Magic trick. But just like the wind, I know that there's some sort of intentional supportive force behind that stuff. Blind forces don't just turn from an egg to a chicken.
Right.
I'm looking for evidence of that thing behind that's supporting us, right? So looking for examples of that. Or you think like, okay, well, I'm going to have some beef for lunch or dinner so I can get my protein in. How the heck did a cow get so big eating nothing but grass? Are you kidding me?
Right.
It's transformed grass.
That's what you're eating. There's 4 stomachs.
Yeah. And one's called the farting bag. I think they could have come up with a better name than that.
They could have come up with a better name than farting bag, something I learned.
Yeah.
If there's something I can pull away from this conversation,
you can, here's the thing, you can take all of this, the activation processes in nature and everything else. If you keep going deeper and deeper, you're going to run out of answers on a cellular and molecular level. Science investigates to the deepest levels, and then eventually you realize that there's something beneath and behind all of this. And that something is very intelligent, very intentional, and really gives a crap about you because it's doing so much work and not taking credit. And even though you can deny it exists, it still beats your heart every night and keeps you breathing and helps you so you can take a piss in the morning, right? How about this? Astrology. Gravity pulls these meteorites towards the Earth, right? Come crashing into the Earth, stuff like that, I guess. I guess it's gravity. Why doesn't gravity pull the Earth towards the sun?
Yeah, that's complicated.
How is it that we have a beneficial balance? Gravity override?
Sure.
And yet, the centrifugal force of orbit does not then build up its momentum and fling us out into deep space.
Right. And every planet in this solar system is perfectly in that orbit and consistently just spinning, and it just so works out that we can have 24 hours in a day, map that out to have one extra day every 4 years and be able to figure out that it can be measured perfectly in systematic ways and observed in surreal ways beyond any one person's understanding. And the fact that we can all work together on a similar goal so intelligently with different personalities and their dynamics to be able to you put too many people like you and I, Fox, and we're going to have too many creative ideas, so we need the balance of these different personalities in order to achieve this understanding that all of these planets are cycling in such remarkable ways that what the fuck is really happening, right?
Here's the thing. The more you ask what is happening, the more you grow and evolve. And the more you take it for granted, the more you maintain, the more you become fossilized in your ways, and the more you delay your progress and growth. And you suffer, and the penalty of that is suffering emotions. I don't experience anxiety. I've certainly had tons of examples when I could have The people who know me are like, how did that not absolutely rock you? I'm like, no, I'm all good. And I'll tell you how I get to that point. But there's a grand complication going on here. There's a grand complication with all of this stuff with the universe and how the sun's not burning out, even though it's fire. And yet the sun gives us vitamin D, which we need to live. And it's like, what? But how is it doing it from so far away? You know, and
So
like,
you have experienced anxiety, but you don't
not
anymore.
anymore. Completely free. Absolutely. I haven't experienced it in a long time. But I'm also walking you through a process.
Of course.
That in order to make the A to B shift. Because if I can find a way out of the mental hell of anxiety, then out of compassion for others, I'm going to give you the map on how I found my way out. Now, you can follow that map, or you can look at it and then try to go off instinct and memory. It's really up to you. But I can tell you that there is a way out. Now, I mean, I'm looking for, with this example, I'm looking for how all of the universe seems like a purposeful design by some sort of master builder, right? And then I try to look for evidence of that master builder, you know, shaping, chiseling, creatively designing all these living things. And one of the examples I think of is the raccoon, okay? This is how you level up. You look at the raccoon, okay? It makes cute little shrilly sounds. I like that. I like the sounds it makes. I can't even mimic it. It's kind of, I don't know. It's a cute little sound, right?
Sure.
It has cute little teddy bear ears, okay? Cute little grabby hands, like a little mask face, like soft eyes. But then this is what gets me. It's got a ringed tail. That's clearly just for fun. I can't explain why it's got a ring tail. And then like, oh, hold on. It's like, here's the cherry on top. Ring, 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 ring. Done. Off the assembly line. Now we got raccoons in the world. Now, for me, raccoons were really my spiritual teacher because they're a nuisance animal and everyone says you should hate them. And I was trying to find harmony with them when they were ripping into my bird feeder that I just bought and ripping it apart. And I thought, how do I create harmony with this? And thought, I'm just going to look at them like family. So I started to, instead of just getting mad that they ripped apart my bird feeder, I said, nah, that thing's a raccoon feeder now. I'm embracing it. When the raccoon shows up, I'm making friends with that raccoon. And I'm treating that raccoon like family. And that's what I did. I treated that raccoon like family. And you know what that raccoon did? It showed up at my door with its 4 babies. And I went out with my wife. And we played with these wild raccoon babies. I put them on my lap. I pet them. And they'd come by whenever I had friends visiting and everything else. They were like pets. And
I have to know that this is, okay, I'm going off topic and we can go right back in. But we have to know that your wife is not of similar disposition as the depths in which we're going. Or are you able to share a lot of this stuff with her?
Oh, yeah. I share all this stuff. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time.
And she's just on that level with you.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, but we also don't experience disharmony in our relation. I shouldn't say this because it pisses a lot of people off. We don't really experience disharmony in our relationship. We've been together for many years now, and we haven't really had a bad fight or anything like that. Right? Fair. Now, there are times when women get emotional.
Right.
And I would argue that they're supposed to because it's evolutionary.
Right.
But when somebody's being like, if somebody's going to be irrational and over emotional, what I do is I love them and I support them even more just to show them how authentic I am.
Right.
So it's like all of that stuff serves a purpose. So I'm like, oh, great. You're going to be completely irrational and make false assumptions and get upset at me right now. Perfect. Here's my chance. I love you and I'm not leaving you no matter what. You can act as crazy as you want. If there's any good to crazy moments like this, it's to show you I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, blah, 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 blah. That's what I do. I love it. Give me more crazy moments. And then that's what I'm going to show up, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I do. I see a lot of that in myself for sure.
So here's what this all comes down to.
Of course.
I call this the 5-step fix all. Okay. This is like my ultimate like solution right here. Okay. It just kind of gives me so much inner strength. So you have to play hide and go seek first. And if you don't play hide and go seek enough and you don't have enough evidence and you don't keep paying attention to the evidence, this won't work very well. So question 1, is there a creator? And by that, you can interpret that in whatever way you want, but I'm looking at it like, look at all these effects, like there's something going on there. Is there a creator, yes or no? So I would say yes. Now, if your answer is no, I would say go back to playing hide and go seek. You're losing at hide and go seek. Because if you keep looking, you will find evidence, right? Then I would say, is the creator loving? What are all the examples that this creator is loving? And then I go back to, well, look how I'm being supported here and supported there, and look how I'm being loved through other beings and other things, blah, blah. So I would say yes. And if you don't have a resounding yes, you need to play hide and go seek on that. Is the creator intelligent? What are all the examples and evidence of the creator's intelligence? Okay. You got to go 3 for 3 on those. It is in your best interest. I don't care what, unless your goal is to just maximize suffering and be a warning signal for everyone on how not to live, then you need to go 3 for 3 on all those, right? Then I say, no matter what is going on in my life, if this creator is loving and intelligent, won't it take care of its creation? Now, if that last point, we can just take my stress to a 0 because of how much I've played this hide and go seek. But if it doesn't lower your stress, then you haven't won enough at divine hide and go seek. Just keep playing more and more, and it will take your stress down. It's like wisdom is medicine. You need the right dosage and the right frequency to create healing change. And so that dosage and frequency is finding that evidence on a twice daily basis, with reflection or whatever, until it starts to transform you. And don't stop when you feel good. Like people will take a medication, then they go off their meds, and then the same problem comes back. It's like, don't stop just because you feel good. Now, step 5 is this. Let go of things you don't understand. Let go of things you don't understand. Here is why. If you want to take a look at this like a grand performance, there is a director or a producer behind this story, right? Think of the creator like a producer and director in a movie, right? They're setting all this up and everything's happening and blah, 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 blah. They're supporting you to play your role and everything else. That creator is working from a place of the ultimate love and intelligence across all space and time. We can't see across all space and time, so we're not really qualified to judge how the story should go. We can say we prefer the story went this way, but let me ask you something. Do you prefer a movie when everything goes in the hero's favor the whole time and then the movie ends? No, you like the exciting plot twist because you want to see how it's all going to connect and make sense in the end, right? It would bore us to tears. That'd be a terrible reality, right? So we shouldn't judge the skill of the divine director and say, no, you should have made me get that job. I deserved it. It's like, oh, you had a better job in mind for me? Oh, okay, I didn't know. I didn't know the whole script. Well, why are you judging the script if you don't know the whole story, right? So in the same way that we get help inside our bodies without asking for it, right? That we get help from others without earning it or help through events and circumstances. The creator sends the necessary outside help for the challenges we face, but sometimes we don't see it. That's where your free will comes in, with what you pay attention to, right? You got to trust that this trustworthy source would not create a problem without there also being created a solution that is possible for you. To be anxious and fearful is really a form of doubt against the existence of this force or God. It means you're losing at hide and go seek if you're anxious and fearful. We confuse our preferences for reality with realistic expectations for reality, But here's what it comes down to. You must have the attitude that you can be willing to accept that not everything has to make sense. Save some answers and surprises for the afterlife. we're in the middle of the performance right now. It can't all make sense to us. We can't see across all space and time. When you have all of those attitudes down pat, then you can really have radical acceptance, and you can really have peak level mental toughness against everything that faces you in life. Because what you don't notice doesn't exist in your reality. If you get distracted and you don't pay attention to all the support you're getting, then that support becomes insignificant and non-existent to you. Right? Don't just consider the course of events in life as natural and inevitable. Rarely do people ever appreciate the skill of the creative force or God. Make it a game to find the work of the unseen hand in all things. Behind every star, every loving thought, every gesture, every miracle that supports us, every event, really the story of life, you may come to find, is actually a love story between creator and creation, and all the stuff that causes suffering is just fake, and the love of the creator is actually the only reality in the end, and that is it. Everyone's going there eventually anyways. The more you pay attention, the faster you get out there, and the faster you get out of these pits of self-made misery and mental darkness and everything else. So that is really the game of life. Big fat game of hide and seek, divine hide and go seek. And I'm totally rooting for you and everyone else watching this video in this game of life. And I hope I gave you some good tips on how to find the hiding spots and everything else. But what I can promise you is that when you follow that formula, the prize you get is a mental reality that is so far above what you've experienced before. Because just imagine the feelings you get when you realize how supported you are and you tap into that twice daily. Like how encouraged you are, how confident you are, how motivated you are. And then because you have so much strength inside you, you got so much you can give. And then for me, it's like I only sleep like 4 hours a night because I just got so much darn energy all the time. I've been up since super early this morning before the sun got up. I can still talk all night. Doesn't matter. Because the suffering emotions are what drain us and drain our energy more than anything. And if you can eliminate those suffering emotions, then there is just this abundant energy that can be available to you once you realize how much that stuff is just sapping you. So that process there I call the knowing. And it is one of many different things you can go through in order to reconcile some of the ingredients behind fear of death.
You know, I'm going to be off on a wild goose chase now, right?
Oh, well, here's the thing. First of all, if you point your boat in this direction, like you will this is good. Take your mind down there, because the thing is this, I would guess that one of the things you enjoy most, that fulfills you most, because you're somebody who's a wisdom seeker. And one of the greatest fulfillments you get is when you share that wisdom and help people you care about. Right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be one of your greatest fulfillments. And you do it for various ways, physical, mental, whatever, but you do it, right? And it's very meaningful to you. And I would submit to you that your power to do that will exponentially grow. And then the amount of joy and fulfillment you experience will exponentially grow if you continue in that direction. And I know that for me, that's been the case. And I want you to have what I have. And so that's why I'm jumping on the call. Just say, hey, look, in the same way I've got help that I don't think I deserved, that I'm super grateful for, in the same way, I'm going to pass along help to others. The more I'm helped, the more I'm going to help others, period. Right? And however long it takes, who cares? Like,
Sure.
Frankly, I don't care if we have this conversation, you decide you're like, I'm going to indulge in thoughts of spiritual doubt. Fine, man, go ahead. Like, that's totally cool. I'll accept you no matter what.
Right.
I'd be like, I'm just cool that we had a chance to hang out and chat. But you can take your path however you want and still be unconditionally accepted by me. And many other people will still unconditionally accept you, no matter what you take. But we're just showing you a different way to play the game of life.
I would imagine you and I are probably quite fortunate to be able to have experienced the people that came through our lives, because there was moments in which I was in a place where, we say that we've experienced these things and we can see all the good around us, and we cultivated people who loved us as children. And why did that happen when we were being miserable little brats? And ultimately I was like, well, there are some people who didn't have any friends, and there were some people who didn't have any cultivation of love at all, or respect or admiration. And what did the creator have to say about those situations? And they manifest themselves as pure evil over time, whatever you want to identify that as a perspective. And I look at it as a cultivation of something, right? That was created, right, and born of something in that environment. And it's clear to me that being coming from where I came from, the family I have, and the people that are in my life, I've got some opportunities that most people never will. That's just hands down. That's the brass tacks of this thing. And I've never looked at people above or below me. Maybe I've aspired to become, but growing up in a small town, I always found it didn't matter what kind of wealth status they had or spiritual beliefs they embodied. I've always been able to connect with anybody if they give me the chance, if they let me in, type thing. And I don't really know what brought me to this disposition, but I think gratitude for what we do have is something that has always been important to me in cultivation. And what really spoke to me is this stepwise fix. And I'm not just saying this out of respect because I don't understand it to the same level of depth, but I mean, what I felt as like an open acceptance throughout near the end of this conversation was more or less that I don't think you ever really letting go of what you don't understand. I don't think you ever truly get to a point of understanding and relation and deep relation of this individual. You just keep pursuing those thoughts or pursuing these thoughts, and you'll reach some really honest and truthful connection with that pursuit, right? But I mean, it would be fair to say if we put you in an environmental situation that completely, it could affect you, right? Like we put you into what do you call it was a guy named Silence when I was studying fascial stretch therapy. He was in jail for 19 years. The guy is golden, like just hilarious. The stories he has, he's got dreadlocks from his head down to the ground. And he's like this massive jack dude, great spirit, solitary confinement. I would argue to say that your thoughts might shift, right?
Yeah,
And that would be a very
for
difficult
sure.
thing. So our environment
100%
plays
it
a
would.
really strong, and it's like you could probably find some contentedness and peace in coming to the understanding, that you're being taken care of by your creator to some level. But I mean, what's the better pursuit of your thoughts? That's at least where I'm at with this, to say that I know where your perspectives are coming from, or what you're working on in your own growth right now, because I'd imagine you're working on growing into something to maintain a direction. That's my assumption, right? I mean, that's kind of where I am. It's like you must pursue the more appropriate thoughts for you to be able to benefit and for others to benefit.
Yes, 100%. So I would say this, and I totally honor that, because you bring up a very good point. So what the process I use is to first accept the things that we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
Radical acceptance. But that doesn't mean being a doormat. Then I go into what's good about this, what can be learned, how can I make it better,
Yeah.
and move forward. But I'm better able to plan out my next steps because of the fact I've got a calm determination instead of operating from a reactive, triggered position. When you are emotionally reactive, your creativity goes down,
Mm-hmm.
your reason goes down, your energy goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the better use of your thoughts? Always to accept first. Whatever you need to do in order to have radical acceptance, for me, it's the 5-step fix all, right?
Mhm.
Is there a creator? Is it loving, intelligent, want to take care of its creation even if I don't understand it? Boom.
Mhm.
For me, it's that. Now I'm ready. What's good? What can be learned? How can you make it better?
Mhm.
Then I take my next 2 steps forward. It's like a walk in the fog. You just need to have a good way of traveling. You can't really know what's going to be up and ahead till you take your best 2 steps.
Mhm.
So I'd say have that process for moving forward, but it begins with just acceptance, radical acceptance, because that really kind of that gives you strength in rather than anxiety disempowering you. Now you're empowering yourself and yet still move forward in the best way possible. And you will know the best way because that direction will be inside you. It'll be
Mhm.
like it'll come through your intuition, your gut feelings, your inspiration,
Mhm.
even random thoughts. You'll be supported in that best way possible if you pay attention to it.
Mhm. Fox, this has been beautiful, man.
All right, man. Key takeaways from you for tonight. Key takeaways from you.
Okay. Um, Initially, I think unpacking the seed came to me of you suggesting my anxiety was stuck in a lack of understanding in a creator. You know, in the back of my mind, I've been like, yeah, yoga and prayer dashana stuff. That's like a whole year-long journey that I don't know when I'm going to hit that journey. And Dispenza seemed like a shorter journey, so I was like, I'll do this one for now. It's a book and a couple practices. But that the beauty of that seed and what it created in my mind, to say that my anxiety was from the lack of belief in a creator, and then me having the day and a half of frustration and being like, this Fox guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't need to know in a creator. And then 3 days later, it's like, Kyle, quit being an ass, right? Move beyond yourself. And there's probably something of depth here because most of the things that you've brought to me in my life have been, well thought out and very considerate. Um, so that's a big takeaway. Um, I'm just going through the motions, but I would say, knowing this 5-step process was really big for me. That was a big takeaway. Reflecting on the fact that this kind of conversation, um, is complicated to begin with, not even to end with or achieve some level of respect and intuition and understanding or resonance. Let's say if people were to listen to this, I don't know, we might get half of you, and if they could take back their like, they might, because they won't know of what have truly have transpired here. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what's kind of blowing my mind is the resonance with what I'm going through and how I'm sure there's millions of people that could resonate on this level. I just don't know if it would find them. Right. So it's truly specific here. Um, to me, and maybe it's speaking a lot to me. Everything is a miracle. That was really exciting. And my my partner Tina says my spirit animal's a dog because I'm just happy all the time. I have my moments, right? But she's just like, would you relax? And I'm like, what for? you know Anyways, so everything is a miracle. I love that, and that being an Einstein quote or whatever was really cool. I've got pages of stuff that I'm excited to reflect on. um the ingredients towards a creator, it looks like there was a lot of things that I'm going to have to meditate and revisit and come back to, and I'm curious to go into this only to truly unpack my original intuition. I'm on the path of this 4-week process with Dispenza. 1 week you do one thing, the next week you do another thing, the next week you do another. I'm on week 2. And for me, I'm getting a lot out of this in terms of being able to maintain my emotional well-being in a situation that it's chaotic on the opposing side, right? Like there's an intense amount of freedom and contentedness, and then the chaos that I'm experiencing in my anxieties is really sharp right now. And I think, I'm trying to meditate on why that is. Um, Anxiety from being an extrovert, not being around people nearly as much, being over a screen, the scalability of things and the pace at which I can learn it so that I can identify. Like, Facebook ads is a beast, by the way. Just gonna throw that out there. And we've optimized and found some good stuff, like right in the nick of time, in terms of finance, and now it's changing and shifting. And Man, yeah, I guess let's just say this morning's meditation was really hard, because of all the stress that's going on in life. And I was in a very deep conversation with my mom last night, and then my best friend after, to say like, guys, I'm struggling right now. And they're like, well, you never struggle. I'm like, I got it. And that's why I'm calling you. Right. Because I don't quite know, all of this chaos. And, you know, what it, um, what if take care of its creation? Step 4 in the knowing. I must have written it down in a very scribbled way. Um, oh, won't it take care of its creation? I think you suggested if that doesn't give you peace, then you might not, or some level of reduction in stress, that you might not be in a place to be able to observe that. And for me, that very much did give me a certain level of peace. And it's giving me a certain level of peace, or at least it has in the past week, of really trying to lean into this surrender idea of,
Yeah.
won't it take care of its creation? And it's like, just take care of me, right? Because I'm doing a million things and trying to keep up with the world, and it just seems to be moving faster and faster. And calm is where I feel at step 4. So, not to say that I might be shortcutting and skipping some steps, as we identified earlier in the
No, no, that's
this journey
that.
we're on.
All steps lead to the 5-step at the end.
Okay.
That was just like a 2-hour conversation to get to that ending point, but having it actually connect.
Mm.
Because if we
Yeah, no
don't do the
wonder.
preliminary work, then if I say, is there a creator? You could be like, meh. Is the creator loving? Meh. Like in
Sure.
order for that to have power,
Mhm.
we had to prime it with our previous discussion.
Mhm.
So that I could be like, and so we primed it and we unpacked it on many levels. We just played hide and go seek. And I'm like, dude, I know you haven't played this game of hide and go seek. Maybe much, maybe at all.
Mhm.
Fine. I'm gonna
Right.
I'm gonna work with you. We're gonna go as a team, and I'll show you. Look
Mhm.
there, hiding there. Look
Mhm.
there, hiding there. Look there, hiding there. Now you go out and play. Get some practice.
Mm.
Right? Like that's really what it is.
Yeah. And I think like, I have friends who are like, yeah, I'm really studying spirituality. And I'm like, I'm really studying business for the next 6 months. Okay. I'm going to block myself into that hole and, go as fast as I can out of my own ambitions. And I think that's probably in part what I'm feeling around the study of Yogananda Prayardashana. And for me, I don't know why that block is there. Um, Maybe it's an overwhelm of wanting to be as productive as possible with all of my time, and feeling a certain level of contentedness with the new spiritual level I've arrived at. That's the only way I can identify with it. But for years since you told me, I was like, I think we were at lunch at a burrito spot or something, and Gino was there, and I was like, so I've been thinking about this spiritual stuff, and you guys threw out the Yogananda Prayardashana, and it's been on the back of my mind for so long. I don't know what has stopped me from it, because whatever it's cost, I can buy 6 books and it will easily, connect the dots and its cost. So, but for some reason, it doesn't seem, the biblical saying of where you spend your money is where your heart lies also. So I've always lived based on that guiding principle as to like intellect growth, ambition, success. If I'm spending money in those directions, I know at least I'm spending in the direction of my values, right? And if people are just like, why would you go into credit card debt for a course? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know how much more valuable that course is than having this credit card not exposed for its value? You know what I mean? Like a $5,000 course with you, Fox, is gonna completely shift my world. But a $5,000 course or semester in school is, I'm just saying there's a difference, right? And maybe I'm just getting excited here, but the pull for me, um, in this conversation was connecting dots from a long time. And well, I'm sure there'll be many more dots to connect, but I'll have to meditate on all of this stuff for longer and allow it to kind of pop back into my life in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we don't have to unpack that as to why. I'm sure you have something super wise and helpful to say, and I'm super grateful for your time. And I would spend hours of it if I had it my way, but then I wouldn't have it my way because my conscience would be kicking in and it'd be a whole mess. So we're gonna we're gonna keep it, at this. And man, I'm very grateful for you spending the time with me. And yeah, man, this has been really neat for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's an honor and a pleasure. And I would say, I'd say I'm just an empty hollow tool. There's what you really want to thank is whatever was inspiring me and supported me to even have the conversation with you tonight at the end of it. Because really that's where all credit should go. And even the wisdom I shared with you tonight was the result of something very chance that happened with me. It was the result of having a chance, random, weird encounter with nature that inspired me to read certain material that gave me the wisdom I needed to have the conversation with you tonight. Because really, if I dial it back, our conversation tonight happens from something that I thought was very miraculous that happened a few years ago that got me onto this wisdom path. And in many ways, that might have been, something miraculous that supports you and others indirectly, but for our benefit yet again on the outside. So, all right, buddy, we're all here.
This already happened. How do we end the song? It's not happening anymore. What do you chant? What's the chant? I was like, it's not happening anymore.
This is what we do. We talk about this, man. Here's what we talk about, okay? Talk about how exciting this whole thing is. It's like we're in a big mystery, okay? Like figuring out human life and how to live it. It's like the ultimate group project. We're all in it.
Man.
But I was like, if you were in my group in school, you would have loved it because I would do all the work if you let me. But this is just too much work here. I can't figure it all out. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm bringing my research back. I'm like, okay, team, here's what I got. I read all these books. I did all this stuff, and I tested it out. Here's the result I'm getting from this stuff. Try out this stuff. I've certainly spent most of my life reading spiritual stuff, and most of it just didn't really work in the real world. Like it just was prepared properly or delivered properly. Point is, we're all in this thing together, trying to figure it out together, right? And if I make sense of it all and figure it all out, then I'll share any of my successes in any way to support you and everybody else I can, in the journey of spiritual perfection. And if reincarnation is a thing, then out of compassion, I will come back as many lifetimes as necessary to help support you and others who are on that journey. So let's end on that. We're a team, friends forever.
Enemies for
never. Let's do go team on 3. Are you ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Go team!
Go team! All right, brother. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening. And man, this has been really great for me. So have yourself a beautiful night. Good luck with the cuddle up close to the missus and, sleep well, man.
Awesome, man. Keep me posted on your progress. I'm rooting for you all the way, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate it, brother. Me